So, He-Man Revelation is out. I watched it and I enjoyed it. I knew this thing was coming for a while, and Kevin Smith being involved, I'm like, okay, he's always talking about comic books and stuff, and let's see what happens when he's involved with this. Now, he's been involved with comic books before as a writer, but with the show, this felt kind of new. And he had his friend Mark Bernardin involved, and his comments on story mechanics and everything made me think his involvement was going to be really good. And I gotta say, I think that holds up. This was kind of a match made in heaven. I don't binge a lot of shows. Now, granted, the show, part one, it's only 5 episodes long. I was satisfied with it. Now, the show's gotten some criticism. And I gotta say, by and large, I think it's unwarranted. So, one of the things people are taking Kevin Smith to task about is they say he's lied about his fandom for this property. I would say he's been pretty consistent. So, people have said that he said before, growing up I wasn't a fan of the franchise. And then later on he said, I am such a fan of this. And people have said, well, you lied, because in one tweet you said this, but now you're saying you're a fan? And it's like, I would say it's pretty obvious he became a fan, because this was a creative endeavor that he took part in. And if you make something and invest so much in it, I mean, whether it's with a property you came up with or you were handed the keys to and told, go nuts, you would develop a love for it. Otherwise, you would spend the time trying to make it and seeing it through. So I think it's pretty obvious that he became a fan, and he's not... Yeah, I don't think he's trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. Another thing is, people are complaining like, oh, He-Man's gone woke. You know, they killed him off, they didn't make him the main character. And it's all about feminism and stuff. And I don't buy that. I would almost even question, like, has anybody even... People who are throwing accusations like that, have they even seen the show? Because I think if you see it, you'll realize that, you know, He-Man in this series, he stands for, you know, good and magic and all the things that, you know, like imagination. You could almost say that this is a show that parallels growing up, because, you know, Teela's moment of finding out that Adam was He-Man and feeling lied to, it kind of echoes this thing that we all feel like when we grow up. It's not the I get to do whatever I want, and, you know, we get cynical, which she does. She does get cynical. So I think for this to be sort of woke propaganda, and even, I've never really received a solid definition of what that entails, but I would think that she has to be some kind of Mary Sue who's like flawless and overcomes just about every obstacle. But in this series, it's clear that she's filled with hurt, regret, doubt, and she's allowed herself to become jaded, and sometimes she chooses to be because it's easier for her than to try to perpetuate magic and believe that things are going to be better. So I think she has more depth than that. And plus, she's not the only character that's gone through this. But definitely she's affected the most by it. Now, we've only seen so many. Now, we don't know how, like, part 2 is gonna conclude, or how that's gonna play out. But, spoiler alert, in the last episode, at the very end, Skeletor comes back and, stabs Adam, and as he's transforming into He-Man, and then he has the power of Grayskull. So, definitely we're going to tune in next time. Overall, I enjoyed this. It shows, former enemies uniting together, and yeah, they did a really good job, I think, of showing, how necessary magic is in people's lives. And maybe imagination is a better word, because as kids, it's really easy to imagine how things could be better. And as you grow up, it could get more difficult to see that. It feels like potential is gone and missed out. And that's you could almost say that taking this into He-Man is almost the most imaginative use of nostalgia. So I got to give him and Mark Bernardin and all the other people involved kudos for taking it in that direction. So I enjoyed this. And don't get me started about the animation. There were one or two bits where I thought, okay, this shot could have been done differently. But overall, it's, gorgeously animated. So this gets my seal of approval. And like Kevin Smith has tweeted in the past, I didn't grow up with this. I saw the Cartoon Network sort of reboot from the early 2000s, and I'm like, I could watch episodes of that. But this is one of those shows that I watched all 5 episodes, largely because Kevin Smith was involved. But it stood on its own feet. And, for the people who are raking him over the coals, I want to say something a bit more articulate than this, but I just got to say, get over it. I think he made a good show, so, check it out if you haven't, because I have a feeling that's the people who are whining the most. And if you have already, let's see what he does with part 2, because I think it's going to be good.